Cannes started with creative awards.
Right.
Then it moved into becoming a place where media also became very, very important and has become a huge conference overall. This year, it's ad tech. How do you see ad tech's place in this industry of media and creative? And what do you think people are going to be talking about at this great meeting?
Well, first off, I've never been to Cannes before. So what I know about Cannes is beautiful beaches, lots of parties, and yachts. So I'm hoping that there actually is a real dialogue about the future of the industry. I think that my time in ad tech has been very cyclical, that at times it's pushed to the background as an enabler, and at times it becomes really a central topic. And I think we're at a point in the cycle where there's so much fragmentation and there's so many new things happening in content that the question of how we advertise as the world changes is really important. So the more complicated the world is, the more we need technology. It's not just about advertising. Any industry goes to a moment where it's like, whoa, how are we going to do that? And then technology is in the forefront. And so I think we're at that perfect moment where things are getting really complicated. There's tons of vendors. There's a shift in even the major players. I mean, portals, which 10 years ago owned the internet, are less and less important in some ways in mobile because you have apps. And then the other side, you have increasing importance where like Facebook has 30% of all time spent. It's not a portal in the same way, but it's capturing so much of the time we spend. And so I think that's where technology becomes central again. And maybe 5 years from now, we'll have nailed the core technology and the fragmentation will slow down and it will be creative again. It will be what's the right story to tell. But I think right now it's how do we tell the right stories? And so I'm excited to go because I think if you look at the agency people who are struggling with this technology advance that programmatic's become, if you talk to publishers who are also struggling to find ways to make money, they've leaned on salespeople and RFPs and sponsorships for a really long time, and now that's changing. If you look at the earnings we've seen, people are saying, oh man, this programmatic thing is hurting my numbers. I'm not sure if it's programmatic or if it's the shift to mobile, or if it's a decline in the need for broadcast versus the need to personalize. I don't think anyone really knows what's going on. And that's when these dialogues become fascinating. And I think we'll look back in 5 years and say, oh yeah, well of course. But right now, who knows?
Well, Gartner is projecting that the CMO in 5 years will have a larger technology budget than the CIO of the company. What do you think about that?
I personally find that a little bit hard to believe because the numbers on the CIO side are massive. If CMOs are spending billions of dollars on big data, it's great for me. I'd be thrilled. I think it's also a question of why do big companies use data? So if you look at a company like an American Express or a JP Morgan Chase, they have billion-dollar data operations. Not to sell, but to leverage to build their own businesses. And so I guess the question is, do you consider that to be CMO money or CIO money, or is it a new data science organization? But the bottom line is that data is incredibly important, and that if it doesn't project into marketing activities, what's the point? And so I think in that sense, you could argue, yeah, the CMO should always have been in charge of that money. It's not a shift of money. It's a shift of who's in charge and who has the mandate. And I think that's actually good for everyone, is if we have marketers who are data scientists, who are engineers, that's going to change the world, I think, more than almost anything else. And by the way, it opens the path for agencies to be the experts on how to take advantage of that data, how to use media, how to bring creativity to the table. It's interesting that you're not saying, hey, Gartner says marketers are going to build creative teams. Marketers are going to build real media expertise. That's not what the value prop is. It's the data's there. How do you bring it together, and how do you use it to build better products and to market those products? I think both of those make a ton of sense in the world we live in.